Hi, everybody. I've heard a lot of stories about relationships. Some of them were about problems between a boy and a girl, some about unhappy love, some about being unfaithful when there were more than two people in the relationship. My name is Katie. I'm 19 years old, and my story is like the last type. This is a story about how someone else intervened in my relationship with my boyfriend, namely his mother. My boyfriend's name is Guido, and he is 25 years old. We met about 6 months ago and soon began to live together in a tiny one-bedroom apartment. Guido worked a lot in his office, and though he assured me that there are great career opportunities, at the present moment he did not earn much, so we could not afford anything better. However, the lack of money was not a big problem for us. I think that Guido and I were pretty happy, and in fact, I don't think that we experienced more difficulties than any other couple our age. However, all good things come to an end sooner or later. In my case, the end had a name, Giuseppina, Guido's mother. Not very long ago, Giuseppina, or just Juicy as she asked to be called, decided to move from her historic homeland to be closer to her son. I was, of course, very excited. I perceived Guido as my husband-to-be, so I really hoped to be able to please my potential mother-in-law. I decided to cook lasagna for her arrival. You know, it's welcoming when a familiar, well-known dish is offered as a greeting. The only difference was that I was going to cook a vegetarian version of lasagna for Juicy. I am a vegetarian, and since it was very important for me, I tried to guide Guido into the same way of life. But please, don't you even think that I tried in any way to put pressure on my boyfriend. Yes, it was indeed really important to me, but still I have never insisted that Guido share my beliefs in any way. But he was in fact fully understanding, and he always did his best to support me in my endeavors. And that's why he always readily made small sacrifices. I was very grateful for him. Guido was usually very nice, kind, and gentle with me. We have never argued at all, really. And we've always been ready to discuss anything and make compromises. Until his mother arrived. My boyfriend promised me that we would have no problems with his mom. So I expected to see an active but friendly and good-natured woman. But Juicy was not like that. She did not seem happy to see me at all, although I persistently tried to give her a sincere hug. Juicy looked at me as if she was evaluating me and was not happy with what she had seen. After that, she started something that looked like an inspection of our apartment and was also not completely satisfied with the results. It seemed to me that it was a little bit inappropriate to start any introduction with a barrage of criticism regarding another person's lifestyle. But I swallowed my offense and called Juicy and Guido to the table. And this did not help to improve the situation at all. When Juicy found out that there was no meat in my lasagna, she suggested that she could help me to serve the food, and then proceeded to drop my dish on the floor. After that, Juicy was terribly distressed and asked me to forgive her, but I already had my doubts regarding her sincerity. I really wanted to believe that all this was just a coincidence, and that this lady was simply feeling tired after her long flight. But after that, things only got worse. Juicy, of course, stayed with us on the very first night, and as we went to sleep, she walked into our bedroom several times pretending that she needed to ask or clarify something. Of course, Juicy did not bother to knock on the door, and Guido only shrugged at my interrogative glances. Okay, that was his mother, so I couldn't insist that he tell her how inappropriate her behavior was. But on the second night, Juicy declared that the sofa in the living room was too soft for her sore back, so we had to give up our bed to her. I had to go to sleep on our small sofa alone, because Guido slept in the bedroom on the floor. Juicy insisted that her son stay with her because she thought that the floor in the living room was too dirty. By the way, Juicy really did make our apartment perfectly clean, and at the same time she threw away all my clothes that she did not like. I was furious and demanded an explanation, but Juicy's logic was killing me. For example, she said that she threw away my ripped jeans because she thought they were an old rag. With everything that was left, my wardrobe began to resemble a nun's locker. Juicy implemented new orders not only into my life, but also into the life of her son. We did not have a car, so Juicy paid her own money to rent one from a car-sharing service. She said that she had done it so that Guido could comfortably drive to work. But since the car was rented in Juicy's name, she said she would take her son to the office herself to make sure that nothing happened to the car. You will not believe it, but Guido did not object to what his mother was suggesting. So for some time, Juicy really drove her son to and from work every morning and evening, as if Guido was a 13-year-old schoolboy. My boyfriend, of course, became an object of his colleagues' mockery, and in order to avoid this, Guido simply began to stay late at work as often as possible. He was pretending that he had a lot of work in the office and that dealing with it was important for his career. But I saw the real reason, and I just wanted to kill him for leaving me alone with his mother in the evenings. Of course, I never literally tried to kill Guido, but as for his mother, well, at least Juicy herself was positive that I was going to kill her. Apparently, she was clever enough not to accuse me of deliberately trying to poison her, but she did accuse me saying that I was about to do it unintentionally. And this is how it happened. One day, after eating a meal prepared by me, Juicy felt really sick. She had sharp and severe cramps in her stomach. She turned pale and all of a sudden she started sweating a lot. I did not immediately notice that something was wrong with her because that day Guido was working and I was alone with Juicy, so I tried not to cross paths with her, basically so she wouldn't try to start a new argument with me. But when Guido's mother fell heavily and loudly on the floor in the middle of the living room, I was terribly afraid and rushed to her side. I called the ambulance and went to the hospital together with Juicy. Guido was at work and I did not immediately inform him of what had happened, since I wanted to spare him any unnecessary worry. And then after all the checks were done, it finally turned out that there was nothing seriously wrong with Juicy. She spent only one night in the hospital, and the next day she unceremoniously told me that she felt sick because of my nasty and strange food. Although it seemed to me that Juicy should just have been eating something with less fat and starch, and refrain from eating fried, spicy, or sweet food, and in general, she should have just eaten less. Anyway, Juicy was fine. So I decided to talk to Guido about his mother's visit that was already taking too long as soon as I had the opportunity. But his reaction totally shocked me. He said that I had gotten the wrong idea about Juicy's visit. In fact, Guido's mom did not come to visit her son and his girlfriend. She was going to stay in the United States permanently. And since Guido was an American citizen, his mother had all the rights to stay where her son lived. What a pity. After all, this meant that Juicy would live with us until Guido earned enough money to get her a house, and I did not see that either Guido or Juicy were talking about this at all. At the same time, the more time Juicy spent in our apartment, the more impudent and unceremonious this woman became. Finally, she completely forgot about having good manners. Juicy started talking to her son in Italian in my presence, and Guido answered his mother in the same way in his native language, not caring at all that I did not understand a word. And at first I silently tolerated these episodes. Then I began to demand a translation, but both Juicy and Guido just ignored me. Then I began to think that they were talking about me all the time. A little more time passed, and I found out that I was pregnant. I did not plan this, but my pregnancy helped me to finally realize that I could not continue to live like this. So I talked to Guido one last time, demanding that he relocate his mother. Otherwise, our family would simply fall apart. I didn't tell him about the child, and it was the right decision because it turned out that Guido was not going to look for another home for Juicy. Guido was so irritated by the annoying topic that he raised his voice at me, shouting that he would always choose his mother between his mother and a girl, because he had only one mother, and there were many girls in the world. I did not want to be just one girl from the many. I realized that there would be no future for Guido and me with this attitude. So I packed my things and went to my parents, and I never spoke to Guido again. I know that it was probably unfair to not tell Guido that I was going to have his child, but it took me some time to decide whether I should keep the baby. Of course I was going to give him life, but I'm only 19 years old. How could I raise my baby alone? When I returned to my parents' home, I told them everything that happened between Guido, Juicy, and I. And I'm a very happy person because my parents supported me. And they said that they would be happy to help me and their future grandchild. I am now in my 3rd trimester and I am doing well. Whatever is done, it is for the better. I am even a little happy that Juicy appeared in my life and opened my eyes to the true infantile essence of her son. Thank you for listening to my story. Like it, and don't forget